Every single day, someone walks into an American dealership with a Toyota that used to run perfectly, only to walk out holding a repair bill for $5,000. The mechanic will look them dead in the eye and say their piston rings are shot, their engine is burning oil, and they need a complete core replacement. It happens to Camrys, it happens to Corollas, it happens to Tacomas. And the most frustrating part? The owner did everything right. They changed their oil every 5,000 miles. They used premium filters. They drove responsibly. Yet their engine still died a slow, expensive death. But if you travel to Osaka, Japan, and speak to mechanics who have been maintaining these exact same engines for 40 years, you will hear a completely different story. In Japan, these engines regularly cross the 500,000-mile mark without ever burning a single drop of oil. They do not rebuild engines. They do not install new piston rings at 150,000 miles. So, what is the discrepancy? Why are American drivers paying $5,000 to replace engines that Japanese drivers keep running effortlessly for 500,000 miles? The answer comes down to a fundamental lie you have been sold about how oil degrades and a simple $4 liquid that the American additive industry prays you never discover. To understand the scam, you have to look inside the block of your engine. Your pistons move up and down thousands of times every single minute. Around these pistons are tiny metal rings. Their job is to seal the combustion chamber and scrape excess oil off the cylinder walls so it does not burn. When these rings are clean, your engine has perfect compression. It runs quiet, it accelerates smoothly, and it lasts forever. But modern engines, even reliable Japanese ones, run incredibly hot to meet emission standards. Over time, the extreme heat bakes the microscopic layers of oil left on those rings. It turns the liquid oil into a hard black carbon crust. Here is where the dealership makes their money. When you complain that your car is suddenly consuming oil or losing power, they tell you the piston rings are worn out. They say the metal has physically degraded, but that is almost never true. Your rings are not worn out. They are stuck, glued into their grooves by hardened carbon sludge. Because they are stuck, they cannot spring outward to seal the cylinder. Oil slips past them, burns in the combustion chamber, and slowly destroys your catalytic converter while draining your oil pan dry. The metal is fine, the rings are physically perfect, but the American solution is to tear apart the entire engine block and replace them, billing you for 40 hours of excruciatingly expensive labor. But before you ever agree to tear your engine apart, you need to know what Japanese engineers discovered about carbon buildup back in the late 1990s. They realized that you do not need to rebuild an engine to unstick a piston ring. You just need to dissolve the glue. But if you walk down the aisle of your local auto parts store and look at all the brightly colored bottles of engine flush and oil treatments promising to fix this, you are looking at products that can actually destroy your engine faster. The vast majority of American engine flushes rely on harsh, aggressive solvents. Solvents that thin out your oil so dangerously that your bearings can run dry, scoring your crankshaft and causing catastrophic failure within miles. If you use the wrong flush, you are guaranteeing the exact destruction you are trying to avoid. The Japanese approach to this problem is entirely different. It revolves around the philosophy of Kaizen, continuous gradual improvement. They do not shock the system with violent solvents. Instead, veteran mechanics use a widely available $4 liquid treatment based on ester technology and highly refined detergents. Unlike aggressive solvents that strip away lubrication, esters have a unique chemical property. They are highly polar. This means they are magnetically attracted to the metal surfaces inside your engine. When introduced into the oil, these esters slip underneath the hardened carbon deposits on your piston rings and gently lift them away from the metal, piece by microscopic piece, while maintaining extreme hydrodynamic lubrication. This fluid is not a magical secret hidden in a mountain vault. You can buy formulas utilizing this exact chemistry for less than the cost of a fast food meal. But the secret is not just the fluid, it is the method of delivery. American consumers are taught to pour a bottle of additive into their gas tank or oil pan and expect an instant miracle. Japanese precision mechanics know that reversing 100,000 miles of carbon buildup requires time, not just chemicals. They perform what is known as a gradual piston soak or a slow detergent flush, executed perfectly right before a scheduled oil change. Here is the exact method they use to save engines from the scrap heap. 500 miles before your next scheduled oil change, you add a slow-acting, ester-based detergent flush to your engine crankcase. Why 500 miles? Because carbon is hard, and it takes time and heat cycles to safely dissolve it without breaking off large chunks that could clog your oil pickup tube. As you drive normally for those 500 miles, the extreme heat of the engine activates the detergents. Slowly, safely, the ester molecules penetrate the hardened sludge, locking your piston rings. They soften the carbon back into a liquid suspension. Take a moment and think about how much money dealerships make by convincing people this simple chemical process requires a massive mechanical rebuild. I want to build a map of this highway robbery. Go to the comments right now. Tell me the year and model of your Japanese car, and how much a dealership quoted you to fix an oil consumption or engine compression issue. Let everybody else reading the comments see the exact prices they are charging in your city. It is time we expose how widespread this practice is. Once those 500 miles are complete, the carbon that was gluing your piston rings has been suspended in your old oil. When you pull the drain plug, that thick black sludge drains out of the pan. Because the rings are finally free, they spring back outward against the cylinder walls. Compression is instantly restored. Blow-by is eliminated. Oil consumption drops to zero. The engine regains its lost horsepower and runs with the quiet, smooth idle it had on the showroom floor. By spending $4 and 500 miles of patience, you completely reverse an issue that dealerships claim requires a $5,000 rebuild. So, why is this not standard practice in every American dealership? Why do service advisors not recommend a safe detergent flush when a customer complains about oil consumption? Because the business model of the modern automotive industry relies on replacement, not restoration. A mechanic does not make his weekly hours by recommending a $4 bottle of fluid. Dealerships do not pay their massive overhead by suggesting a gradual cleaning cycle. They are incentivized by the manufacturer to push you towards massive repair bills, or, better yet, convince you that the engine is a lost cause, so you buy a brand new vehicle off their showroom floor. But doing this flush correctly requires you to know exactly which oil filter to install immediately after. And this is where millions of drivers make their final, fatal mistake. Because they assume that all oil filters are created equal. They walk into their local auto parts store, grab the cheapest generic filter off the shelf, and screw it onto their newly cleaned engine. But there is a hidden mechanism inside cheap American oil filters that actively works against your engine. It is a tiny, flimsy piece of rubber called a bypass valve, and the moment it gives out, it begins pumping dirty, unfiltered oil straight back into those freshly cleaned piston rings. You just saved your engine from a $5,000 rebuild using a $4 liquid. Do not ruin it by installing a filter that destroys all your progress. If this video opened your eyes to what is really happening inside your engine block, click subscribe right now. Because in the very next video, we are going to cut open a brand new cheap generic oil filter, compare it to a real Japanese original equipment filter, and reveal the catastrophic bypass valve failure that mechanics quietly ignore to keep you coming back. You do not want to start your car again until you see what is inside that filter.